I was standing on the ramp of a torpedo retriever boat, and that's when I saw the object rise up from the depths. I really didn't know what to think of it, and it could be something not from this world.
We're about to meet David Malcolm, a former AUTEC employee who had a really eerie and strange experience one day when he was sent out to pick up torpedoes, but found himself staring at something else.
My job title was a weapons technician, and our job was to go out, collect the torpedoes and missiles after they were fired, and recover them, bring them back into the base. One particular day, probably the winter of 72 to 73, we were in the middle of a test and recovering of one of the torpedoes, and I saw a submerged object that rose out of the depths and came into my field of vision. And just as quickly as it rose, it seemed to just vanish.
Can you describe it for us?
The best description I could give you would be cylinders, a collection of pipes. I really should say I didn't get a clear sense of the length of this thing. I actually don't believe I saw either end of this. You have a limited visibility in the water.
So this could have been huge.
It could have been huge.
This could very well be the same craft that Kurt Rowlett saw on his radar screen, which he said was 1 to 3 miles wide. And just like Rowlett's sighting, the object Malcolm saw disappeared within seconds.
And I'm sure you see cylinders under the water often in torpedoes and submarines. What made these cylinders so different from everything else?
They were completely different. The cylinders that I would have been familiar with would have been nuclear submarines and the weapons they fired. This was neither.
Dave Malcolm was an AUTEC employee and an expert in conventional underwater craft. So when he sees something that he can't identify under the water, it speaks volumes as to how odd this really was. However, I still don't think this was an extraterrestrial craft.
Or did it physically break the surface?
Never broke the surface.
Did you see any turbulence around it, splashes?
Dead calm.
Was that rise and fall something that you typically see in something like a submarine?
Sub would have a tendency to come up on a more gradual incline.
Did we have anything back then, to your knowledge, that could have moved that quickly underwater?
To my knowledge, at that time, we didn't have anything that could move like that. It was something in the water that, in my opinion, at that time shouldn't have been in the water.
If AUTEC was testing something out there near your vessel, wouldn't they notify crews and other ships out there that they were doing some testing?
Not necessarily. A lot had to do with the need to know. So if you didn't have a specific need to know to accomplish your job function, you weren't told about it.
Did you feel that was something you were not supposed to see?
Absolutely.